Do we not value life in India? Do we not value biodiversity in India? Do we not value regulations in India? A disturbing event in Maharashtra's Ratnagiri district. Europe bans and India builds. The PFAS controversy in the Maharashtra. There was a chemical company by the name Mithani SPF. It is a subsidiary company of Lakshmi Organics company. Hello everyone, welcome back to Namma Laex Bangalore presents current issue of the day. In today's episode, we are going to discuss a disturbing event that is happening right in front of our eyes in Maharashtra's Ratnagiri district. What is this? Why is it so significant? Why is it so controversial? And why we should be discussing about it? Everything will be done in this video. So let us start the video. The topic of today's video is Europe bans and India builds. The PFAS controversy in the Maharashtra. Okay, before you start the discussion, let me tell you a story. There was a chemical company by the name Mithani SPF. Mithani SPA. Sorry, there was a chemical company in the name of Mithani SPA, which was an Italian company based in Italy. This was banned in Italy. This was banned in Italy. The reason is that it was producing PFAS. What is this PFAS? PFAS is polyfluoroalkyl substances. This PFAS is also called as forever chemicals. What is it called as? Forever chemicals. So these chemicals started contaminating the groundwater of Italy, which exposed approximately 3 lakh people to these chemicals. 3 lakh people to these chemicals, which resulted in approximately 4,000 deaths in the last 2 decades. As a result, this was banned in Italy. Why are we discussing it now? We are discussing it now because this Mithani SPA's, all the instruments, all the equipments and everything related to them is being imported directly to India by Viva Life Sciences. What is this? It is a subsidiary company of Lakshmi Organics company. This company has now imported everything that was bad about Mithani SPA and is setting up a company in Ratnagiri. It is setting up a company in Ratnagiri industrial belt, the Konkan region, that is the Western Ghats region. So that is why we are discussing. A company which was banned across Europe is now being set up in India. So, do we not value life in India? Do we not value biodiversity in India? Do we not value regulations in India? That is the point of discussion today. So, to sum it up, as I told you, in Maharashtra's Lote Parashuram Industrial Belt in the Ratnagiri district, in the Konkan region, this Mithani SPA, which was permanently shut down in Italy, is being established in under the name of Viva Life Sciences by Lakshmi Organics Industries, and it is relocating and it was exposing 3.5 lakh people in Italy, and now it is being set up in India. So the question is India becoming a dumping ground for the Western banned chemicals, technologies that wealthy nations no longer want on their soils? Is India becoming a dumping ground for all the chemicals that are not wanted in the Western countries? That is the larger question. So, let us discuss the Konkani time bomb. The Konkan time bomb, that is, the technology now operates in the Konkan region, an ecologically sensitive coastal belt dependent on groundwater, agriculture and fisheries. So, if this is India, this region is the Konkani belt, which is spanning from Maharashtra to India. This region is the Konkani belt, and this region is famous for what? This region is famous for Western Ghats. And what is Western Ghats famous for? Western Ghats is famous for biodiversity. And what is this region also famous for? It is famous for fisheries and agriculture. As I told you, in the Italian case, it contaminated groundwater. If it is going to contaminate the groundwater, isn't it going to contaminate fisheries? Obviously, yes. Isn't it going to contaminate agriculture? Obviously, yes. Isn't it going to contaminate the biodiversity which is residing in Western Ghats? Obviously, yes. So this is why this particular industry is a ticking time bomb. So The region's vulnerability makes contamination particularly catastrophic. That is high rainfall region. This is a high rainfall region. So this is going to result in accelerating the groundwater spread, and the fishing communities face food chain contamination, and the coastal aquifers are nearly impossible to clean once they are contaminated, once they are polluted. So one leak can permanently poison the water resources for generations together. It is not an issue of now, it is an issue of generations together. So the question of sustainable development is missing here. So what are these PFAS? Why are they so deadly? PFAS are per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, which is a large family of synthetic chemicals, with extremely strong carbon fluorine bonds that make them virtually indestructible in the nature. They are indestructible in the nature. That is why they are called as forever. And then where are they used normally? The common use is non-stick cookwares, waterproof textiles, firefighting foams, electronics, pharmaceuticals, and especially industrial chemicals. So they are used in these industries, and they are called as forever chemicals because they don't decompose naturally. They persist in water, soil, air, and human blood, and they bioaccumulate through the food chain and remain in the body for years. You all know about bioaccumulation and biomagnification. So in the environment, we have learnt about bioaccumulation and biomagnification. Bioaccumulation and biomagnification. What is bioaccumulation? So there are different trophic levels in the food chain. So the first food chain, for example, if we are talking about pond, the first food chain in this pond will be fishes. So if at all there is PFAS available in this pond, it is going to get accumulated in what? Accumulated in these fishes. So this is the bioaccumulation. If this fish is eaten by suppose a duck, then this is called as biomagnification. It keeps on increasing from one layer to other layer. Now these ducks are being eaten by human beings. Obviously it is going to magnify again and again. So they are such chemicals which cannot be destroyed naturally in the nature. So they keep on accumulating and magnifying, which ultimately lead to various issues such as food chain and remain in the body for years. So what is the significance of this? What are the issues? Why is it so catastrophic? So once a PFAS contaminates the groundwater, cleanup is nearly impossible. And there have been documented health impacts as well, such as multiple cancers including kidney and testicular cancer. As I told you, once it biomagnifies among the human beings, it will lead to cancer in kidney and testiculars, and thyroid and hormonal disorders, which is affecting the metabolism. Next, severely reduced immunity and vaccine response, and infertility and birth defects. This was one of the major reasons why this industry was removed from Italy. This industry was banned in Europe. Liver and kidney damage from bioaccumulation, and finally developmental issues in the children's cognitive function. So imagine a situation: children of Ratnagiri get contaminated with PFAS, children of Ratnagiri contaminated with forever chemicals. What happens to their growth? They will get retarded growth, both in cognitive as well as physical development. So obviously what will happen? This will result in a vicious cycle. What will be the vicious cycle? So PFAS, it is going to contaminate the child, and the child's normal growth, if it is the normal growth of the child, because of the PFAS contamination, the growth trajectory will be like this. So there is a lag. This lag is going to undermine both cognitive, that is the intelligence side, as well as the physical development of child. Once the physical development of child is reduced, obviously as an adult it will be less capable of achieving certain things compared to other adults. And once they are less comparable or less capable, then their ability to work keeps on reducing. Once the ability to work reduces, it will result in earnings, less earnings. Once the earnings is less, then they will turn into poverty. And then if they are poor, then the children of them are going to result in poverty and are going to live in this the same areas. Again, this vicious cycle keeps on continuing. That is why this particular issue is so significant. Okay, next. So how did the world respond? So with respect to this issue, how did the world responded? This process or the response to this PFAS started with Europe. Europe started the lead. They started moving towards near total PFAS ban across the manufacturing and consumer products. They have started near ban, complete ban on PFAS, and then they started strict limits were set. Many countries established stringent drinking water PFAS concentration limits. Next, alternatives fund, that is firefighting foams and industrial processes were replacing PFAS compounds. So one is they started banning the production. Next is they started putting the limits on contamination of water, and then whatever is possible already present now, they started replacing those as well. Next, finally, they started global treaties. That is, PFAS are being listed under the International Hazardous Chemical Conventions such as Basel Convention, which bans transboundary movement of hazardous chemicals, such as Rotterdam Convention, which bans dumping of forever chemicals or persistent organic POVs, persistent organic components. Okay, they started banning persistent organic components. And then, so the developed worlds learned through tragedy. Now they are phasing out PFAS completely. But as again, India, instead of learning from others' mistake, is planning on learning from their own mistake. So how is it going to be so dangerous? Again, India's regulatory vacuum with regard to PFAS. Why is it going to be so dangerous? Is there are no regulations dealing with PFAS in India. First is, with respect to drinking water stations or standards, there is zero drinking water standards. There is no in national PFAS limits for drinking water safety. So what are the organizations that deal with these chemicals in India? One is at the ministry level, MOEFCC. One is Ministry of Environment and Forest and Conservation and Combating Climate Change, MOEFCC. And other is CPCB at the department level, Central Pollution Control Board. And to regulate with respect to food, we have FSSAI, Food Security Standard Authority of India. So are there any criteria, guidelines or any standards regarding this PFAS? No. MOFCC doesn't have any strict guidelines, and CPCB does, though it reacts with respect to persistent organic components. There is no particular criteria guidelines regarding PFAS. And FSSAI, they have given guidelines, draft guidelines regarding the PFAS with respect to food, but that has not come into fruition. As a result, there is zero drinking water standards regard to PFAS, and there is no zero effluent controls, that is no discharge limits for PFAS in the industrial waste, and there is no monitoring program, that is no systematic national PFAS environmental monitoring is available, and also there is no soil benchmarks, that is zero soil benchmarks, no contamination thresholds for the agricultural land. Imagine, in Europe they had limits, they had strict standards. Despite all these things, it led to 3 lakh people getting exposed. Now imagine India with such a large population without any regulatory benchmark for PFAS. Imagine how many people is it going to impact. Imagine the tragedy it is going to unfold. So in order to check, the shocking reality is PFAS can legally be manufactured and discharged in India without numerical safety thresholds. Only generic pollution rules apply, giving no specific protection against the forever chemicals. Okay, that is why it is going to be such a significant issue. So why this is extremely dangerous? First is the pollution arbitrage. That is classic case of corporations shifting toxic industries from strict regulation countries like Europe to weak regulation jurisdictions such as India. So from Europe bans and India builds in this particular case. Next is Konkan's unique vulnerability, as I told you, high rainfall enables rapid groundwater contamination spread, and fishing economy creates direct food chain exposure, and the dense rural settlements ensure long-term burden as well, not just this generation but on many generations coming together. Coastal aquifers extremely difficult to remediate, and invisible time bomb, that is PFAS pollution, remains hidden for decades altogether before disease manifestation, creating delayed public health disasters and rupee cleanup liabilities that fall on the taxpayers as well. Okay, so now it is going to result in getting hidden. Once it gets hidden, it will only materialize once it becomes a disease. When it becomes a disease, then again the taxpayers money will be used to address this issue as well. So why go through all the process when you can easily ban those chemicals? Next, governance failure, that is India lacks a risk-based chemical approval system. Transparency on hazardous technology imports and community health monitoring near industrial chemical beds is very low in India. So this is also a governance failure as well. So the policy question, wow, we must answer. So what should be the way forward for India? What is the issues that Indian government should answer to the citizens? First is dumping ground status. That is India systematically becoming a destination for the developed countries and the chemical industries that the wealthy nations have banned for safety reasons? Is India becoming just a banning or dumping ground for all these chemicals? Second is precautionary principles. Should India adopt Europe's approach, that is regulating chemicals before the harm occurs rather than waiting for the disasters? And then right versus business, that is, can ease of doing business override intergeneration health rates and environmental security? Finally, liability question. Who bears the massive cleanup cost when the disaster strikes? Obviously, it is a ticking time bomb. Obviously, it is going to result in a disaster. When the disaster strikes, who is going to bear the burnt of claiming or cleaning these disasters? So, the polluting company or the industrial taxpayer? Indian taxpayers. So, that question has to be addressed by the government. So, India should go for banning such PFAS and take precautionary principles and focus on the rights rather than business, and also put the liability on the industries rather than the taxpayers. So, fork in the road, that is Europe's painful lesson has been that decades of PFAS contamination resulting in mass poisoning events, billions of cleanup cost, permanent water source destruction, generational health impacts, and company officials imprisoned. So India has a choice. India can learn from Europe or learn by its mistake by resulting in a disasters. We stand at the same crossroads Europe faced decades ago, but with the advantage of their hard-won knowledge. If we ignore, will result in contamination and regret later. If we regulate, we prevent and we protect. So, which choice is India going to make? Considering the current issue or current way the Lakshmi Organic Chemicals has imported everything from the methane SPA, we are going in the first stage. We are going in the first choice. We are choosing the first option, which is going to be detrimental in the future. So, this is not industry versus environment. We have to understand it is not just environmental versus industry. It is not versus development versus environment. This is future generations versus present profits. The very issue of generational equity is being questioned here. PFAS is not just a chemical. It is not just an industrial waste. It is not just an industrial issue. It is a civilizational governance challenge that will define what we leave behind for our future. So, choice is ours. Whether to sit silent and let the government do as it wishes, or to raise questions and bring government to its justice. So the choice is yours. What you are going to do? In order to raise awareness, share the video and voice your voices, create the hashtags, and make sure this industry is not set up in India. The choice is ours. With this, I will be ending the video. Jai Hind, Jai Karnataka.